Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th C. Human factors. Pressure. I want to read to you out of Numbers chapter 20, verses 1 through 13. And the children of Yisra'eel, all the congregation, came into the wilderness of Tsin in the first new moon, and the people stayed at Kadesh, and Miryam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled against Mosheh and against Aharon, and the people contended with Mosheh and spoke, saying, "If only we had died when our brothers died before Yahweh. Why have you brought up the assembly of Yahweh into the wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? And why have you brought us up out of Mitsrayim to bring us to the evil place? Not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Then Mosheh and Aharon went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of appointment, and they fell on their faces, and the esteem of Yahweh appeared to them. And Yahweh spoke to Mosheh, saying, "Take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aharon. And you shall speak to the rock before their eyes, and it shall give its water. And you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their livestock." And Moshe took the rod from before Yahweh, as he commanded him. And Moshe and Aharon assembled the assembly before the rock, and he said to them, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" Then Moshe lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and much water came out, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, "Because you did not believe me, you set me apart in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore you do not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them." These were the waters of Merib, because the children of Israel contended with Yahweh, and he was set apart among them. So, a lot going on here. First off, this isn't the first time that Moses has struck the rock. This is something that has occurred in another chapter way earlier on in their journey into the wilderness, where Moses actually was instructed to strike the rock then. This go round, he was told, "Hey, speak to the rock," and he disobeyed and struck the rock, and that actually cost him. And we can get into the, oh man, what is, it doesn't really seem that bad, and now he lost the chance of going into the promised land. Like, where does that go about? And that's an interesting conversation, but I want to hold that for another time. What I want to focus on is the pressure that Moses was under, and that sometimes really seems to get kind of brushed off to the side, because people are just like, oh, he was angry, they were out in the desert, all this. And this is a mistake that cost Moses the ability to see Israel going into the promised land. So, setting the stage just a little bit, they have been in the wilderness for a long time now. Near this whole generation has been in the wilderness, and they have seen Yahweh provide for them. They have seen food, they have seen water. I mean, heck, there's verses that talk about how their shoes didn't wear out. So they have seen the provision that Yahweh has given. And Miryam dies, and it's very interesting, because this is coming right on the heels of some instruction out of Numbers chapter 19, which is the red heifer, and there's a whole world of teaching in that. But part of the red heifer sacrifice is they're making ashes that are a mixture of fat and ashes, which if you've, really even looked into that, they're making soap. And that is specific for a couple of things, one of which is for if you ever come into contact with a dead body, to wash. You go outside the camp and you wash, and then, after a certain amount of time, you're able to come back in. Miryam has just died, and the people who are closest to her have to bury her. And now they're unclean because they've touched a dead body. So, was that Moses? Was that Aaron? Was that, some other people in Moses's immediate family who would have buried her and, potentially become unclean? I don't know. It's kind of fascinating, but automatically you have some people who definitely have buried Miryam and they haven't had the opportunity to wash because there's no water. Yeah, they may have the red heifer ashes. They may have, everything that's in go, but if there's no water, they can't wash. Find that pretty interesting. On top of the fact that there is 600,550 military-age men that have got livestock, wives, kids. People got to drink water. They're all thirsty. They're angry. You brought us this far, and we're going to die of thirst now, effectively, is what's going on. They've had water provisions, and it all dried up right around the time that Miryam died. That's a whole subset of, just rabbit hole that you can get into on that. But they've been provided for a very, very long time. And now they don't have that provision anymore, and they're angry about it immediately. People are arguing. People are outright starting to challenge Yahweh about some stuff. So no washing, no water to drink. People are arguing, and Moses is dealing with the pressure of having a dead family member who now somebody's going to be unclean because they can't wash, not to mention just the grief of that family member being gone. All of that. Moses is under quite a bit of pressure. And he lashes out. Yahweh gave him some instructions and he did not follow them. I mean, you look at "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" was his attitude when he went up to go try and provide water for them based off of him disobeying the instructions that Yahweh gave him. Find that fascinating. And because of that reaction to that pressure, it cost him. What kind of pressure are we dealing with day to day? Just builds up. It's got to have an outlet some way. It's got to have a healthy outlet if we want good outcomes from it. What is it costing us when something just gets to us and we finally blow our lid? And the thing is we have got to have a healthy outlet for pressure. We can't just keep burying it down underneath stuff. We have got to actually get stuff out in a productive way. But what is it costing us when we're under a tremendous amount of pressure and now we have to live with the consequences of, whatever we said, whatever we did, whatever instructions we didn't follow? That's part of it. I mean, if you really want to think about it, that's additional pressure on top of it, is the fact that we have to live with the consequences of our actions. In all of this, I just want to encourage you guys that, heroes of our faith have been under tremendous amounts of pressure, hundreds of times. And the source of who we should be going to, not just for living water, but for, man, I've got all of this and we need to cast our burdens on Yahweh. He loves us deeply. We need to trust him. I mean, we have seen a world of provision up until this point in our life. Do we doubt that he's not going to see us through all the way? He loves us. Take a deep breath. Wait for him. Do the next right thing. trust that he knows what he's doing. And then when he gives you instructions, follow them. Because he didn't give you those instructions out of just some willy-nilly, like, hey, I want to tell you to do this because I think it's funny. No, it's like, I've given you this for a very, very good reason. It is for your good. Don't just think that because that's the way you did it last time doesn't mean that maybe he's asking you to change things up a little bit. Whatever instructions he's given you, follow them. Go do hard things.